Hello, good morning. I'm Samantha Simmonds. Joining us for the show, Chris Philp, Conservative MP for Croydon South, who is the Shadow Home Secretary, and Neil Coyle, Labour MP for Bermondsey and Old Southwark. Welcome to you both. Great to have you on the programme. And if you'd like to join in the conversation at home, you can find us on social media at BBC London News. Just make sure to use the hashtag #PoliticsLondon. Now, this programme has been told that grooming gangs are operating in London and the situation is more catastrophic than anywhere else in the country. The recent CSEA review revealed that the Met Police are investigating cases of children in London being criminally and sexually exploited, and there is a mismatch between the ways the Met and London's local authorities recalled child abuse data. Our senior reporter Helen Drew has more.
A decision was made that I'd be taken into a children's home, and it wasn't just any children's home, it was a children's home run by paedophiles.
At 11, Chris Wilde lost everything. His dad died and his mum's mental health collapsed. He ended up in care in Halifax, where he was groomed, before moving to London to work in care himself. Here, he's seen the same patterns repeated.
I've worked in this sector for 10 years, predominantly in London, and I've seen things which would be a national crisis. I've seen children being groomed, I've seen children going missing, forced into county lines. If anything, what I've witnessed in London is more catastrophic than it has been in any other places around the country. Grooming gangs is so expansive. Define a grooming gang. You've got drug gangs, you've got people grooming children into exploitation, you've got people being groomed into criminal organisations. In London, we've got all of that. We don't just have grooming gangs who are exploiting children into prostitution or sexual exploitation. We've got everything in London, and that's what a grooming gang does. They take liberties of the most vulnerable young people in society, and we've got a lot of those in London.
The recent CSEA review used London as an example for what was called a mismatch between the ways different organisations recalled child abuse data. The Met Police have recorded 2.77 contact child sexual abuse cases per 1,000 children, whereas London's local authorities only have 1.3 child in need assessments for child sexual exploitation and 1.79 for child sexual abuse. The Met Police told us they recognise that the review finds their data must improve. They say they're acting on this and have expanded their child exploitation teams with an additional 72 officers, a further 46 in online child sexual abuse and exploitation, and over 200 extra officers specially trained in investigating rape and serious sexual assault. Warda Mohamed set up Ealing-based charity Lasting Support to address taboo and complex safeguarding issues for vulnerable young people.
Without the right data, then people are not aware of how bad the situation is, and that's one of the things this report has highlighted. And I think if people knew exactly how bad it was and all the intricate details involved, then yes, there would have been more interest. I just think it's due to a lack of awareness. A lot of young girls, they don't disclose this when it's happening to them. And in the cases where it's identified whilst it's happening, it's because there's adults around that are able to identify that something's not right. But what's happening in London now is, where are those adults that are in regular contact with those vulnerable young people and vulnerable young girls? Because there's so many cuts to services, and social care in and of itself is so severely underfunded.
Chris says urgent action is needed.
If you're a politician and we present you with evidence, we give you all these young people who've got testimonials about abuse, about neglect across the country from all walks of life, all different religions, all different faiths, all different communities. That evidence is overwhelming. If we work together, we can protect children and we can change it forever, and we will not lose a generation of young people through ignorance.
The Home Office says alongside a National Police investigation, they've got the largest ever package of measures to tackle child sexual abuse.
Well, joining us now is Sema Gornall, Chief Executive of the Vavengers, which is a UK-based charity committed to ending all forms of violence against women and girls. And Sema also sits on advisory boards at the Home Office and the Metropolitan Police. Welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us. Let's start with Chris's assessment there of the scale of this problem of grooming gangs in London. He calls it catastrophic, the most catastrophic in the country. Do you agree?
I agree, because it's a big city and we have a very diverse community here, and you go to different boroughs, you see various really different issues, and it gets deeper and deeper.
What about the numbers? Is that reflected because we're a bigger city?
Well, right now we're not collecting the numbers correctly, which is what one of the things that this report is saying. We really have to get better at collecting the data around the perpetrators, the criminals, and the survivors as well, and those who do not survive these horrific abuse. We do not do that successfully, and we've never done that successfully. I think, being in 2025, we have to catch up, because criminals are always 10 steps ahead of us, and that's literally what this report have shown us.
Even if we don't have the specific numbers, you agree that the issue of grooming gangs is a massive problem in London?
It's a massive problem, and it's transnational. So what we also see, which really concerns us, is there's multiple forms of gender-based violence. I mean, I speak in the gender-based violence perspective. Not that it doesn't happen to boy children and men, it does. But in our context, what we see often is, girl children being trafficked outside the UK, taken to various countries, and then they get tortured, raped, cut, perform female genital mutilation on them. Yeah. And then they are brought back here. And then when they do come back, we have huge issues, like they have to take a loan out from the FCDO. The law is designed around an average white man getting lost overseas, a business person, and that outdated law is not serving the people who are trafficked by these grooming gangs. And they work together, because when you then do bring back that child back into the country, that child is incredibly traumatized, and often they return as young adults, and you can do further exploitation, like prostitution, and you can keep exploiting them into county lines on all sorts of issues.
Chris, you were policing minister, you're now Shadow Home Secretary. What's your assessment of how serious this problem is in London?
Well, I think it is incredibly serious. We've heard both Sema and Chris on your videotape explain how they feel the problem in London is a catastrophically large one. It's deeply concerning the Metropolitan Police haven't collected the proper data. Now, we saw in some of those northern cities, places like Bradford, Rochdale and Rotherham, we saw these crimes being deliberately covered up by the police, by local councils, because the perpetrators were mainly of Pakistani heritage. So there is a concern that sometimes, for terrible to awful reasons like that, these crimes can get either ignored or in some cases deliberately covered up.
And do you have any evidence that's happening in London, a similar kind of thing?
Well, I think the problem is we don't have the data, but we've heard testimony from Sema and from Chris, so this does need to be looked at. This national inquiry the government has been forced finally to set up does, I think, need to look very carefully at London. We are the UK's biggest city, 9 million people, so it is possible this kind of horrendous offending may not get so easily identified in a city that is just as big as London is. So I think both the National Inquiry needs to take a really hard look at London, and the Metropolitan Police need to just forensically focus on this. And just any victim, I would just encourage any victim to just urgently come forward and talk to the police, or if not the police, someone you trust, so these offences can get properly investigated. So anyone listening who thinks they have information, please go to the police straight away.
Neil, this is a decades-long problem. It's now fallen on the Labour government to try and get to the bottom of it. The numbers, the data is crucial here.
Yeah, and the data from this shows that Met have a higher record of crimes against children than local authorities, and that's really worrying, because this means that the Met haven't potentially shared that information with councils and social workers who are meant to intervene and support those children after incidents have occurred. So there's actually a problem potentially here with what the Met are sharing. But the work that Jess Phillips, our Minister who has professional experience in the sector, is leading on, and the inquiry will lead on, will get to the bottom of this and prevent any cover-up. And we have had cover-ups in the BBC, we've had cover-ups in the NHS, in institutions for children with learning disabilities, we've had institutions like the Church of England and the Catholic Church hide this. The cover-ups have been in different parts of the country and in many different institutions, sports clubs included. And no abuse is acceptable, and what this government is trying to end is any child being potentially a victim. We want children to be as safe as possible and to have the best opportunity to grow up safely as possible.
Sema, Baroness Casey found that the data hadn't been properly recorded by ethnicity. She says the worst thing you can do on race and ethnicity is to half collect it. Is that due to the fear of being branded racist, do you think?
Yes, and I think that's a form of racism in itself. It just shows that our organisations across the UK, the professionals, are actually, we have deep racism, sexism, homophobia rooted in our organisations. These organisations are not fit to police the members of the society or look after children, because if you are worried about that, you are racist. It's racial fragility, which is a type of racism. I would actually suggest that we collect data on age, race, region, motivating factors, how much money is being made, because violence against women and girls is a very profitable business for these organizations, and everything has to be collected. Crime is a crime, criminal is a criminal. You just have to put them through the justice system.
Why do you think in London the data has been so woefully underreported, under-recorded?
Well, I think the policing system that we have, and I'll say this, both from someone who's advised them for a long time and working in the charity sector and seeing, what we see in our frontline programs, is that I don't think we have a policing system in London that's fit for purpose. We have to transform the way our policing system works, and that's why we're just not getting ahead of the game. The criminals are 10 steps ahead of us.
Yeah.
We saw in the COVID lockdowns, we did see some better Met work around the grooming gangs targeting county lines and drugs in particular, because the children were more visible leaving London on trains that were largely empty, and it shouldn't have taken a pandemic for the Met to be able to identify that and do more. But the police have been overstretched. We're providing additional resource under this government and through the National Crime Agency going forward. I hope we see better results going forward, and as much of this can be prevented as humanly possible.
I think one of the problems is also political leadership in London. I mean, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, was asked about this 10 times in the London Assembly, I think it was in January, by Susan Hall, and he basically refused to answer the question.
What was he asked? What was the question?
He was asked essentially the questions you're asking about, the whether there is a grooming gang or a rape gang problem in London, and he basically refused to engage with the question. He also wouldn't volunteer to have a specific inquiry in London, by contrast to Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who, to his credit, did organise a Greater Manchester inquiry. Sadiq Khan refused to do the same thing, and when a previous Home Secretary a couple of years ago raised concerns about this, Sadiq Khan said she was engaging in a dog whistle, which I think is really despicable. So I think there is a question about Sadiq Khan's leadership, but now we need to make sure the Met really do grip this properly, investigate everything.
Okay.
And I do think the national inquiry that the government were forced to have does need to look really carefully at London.
Briefly, do you agree, Neil, that the Mayor is failing in this area? And if so, why? Why is he not answering those questions?
And actually, I think it does a disservice to the victims and the children who need us to be focused on providing the solutions to try and make this about one individual mayor in one part of the country. The case review will be able to do a deep dive in any part of the country that is deemed necessary. So if there are particular problems identified in London, that will happen. And I think most of us just care about getting to the point where children can grow up as safely as possible. And I want to see that in London, of course, as a London MP, but I want to see it anywhere in the country.
Of course. Well, I'm sure we will revisit this. Sam, thank you very much for telling us about your initiatives and the work that you're doing. Thank you.